Hello, real estate friends. Tracy Silicon here with episode 3 in the Trendline Countdown to Chaos series. Journaling the big changes coming to the real estate industry courtesy of the recent commission class action lawsuits. If you like what I have to say, please consider subscribing to the series at thetracytalks.com. This week, I'm focusing on the new mandatory buyer representation agreements, so let's get into it. So it's 40 days and counting. As of the date of the publication of the blog post that accompanied this video, we're 40 days away from, or actually we're just under 40 days away from sweeping changes to the real estate industry, courtesy of the recent commission lawsuit. Are you ready? Is the industry ready? Two of the biggest changes coming are that sellers can no longer offer compensation to buyer agents on the MLS. That's a big one. And the second one is that every buyer will have to sign a very specific representation contract with an agent before they even start looking at houses. And the second big change is that all buyers must sign contracts with their buyer agents, assuming responsibility for payment of services. That one's big. For buyers especially. So in today's edition of my Countdown to Chaos theory, I'm looking at the new mandatory buyer representation agreements, including their newfound significance and the terms you might be asked as a real estate buyer to sign. Historically, in my area, buyer representation agreements were rarely used, so this is going to be a big change. I was just starting to rigorously apply buyer rep agreement in my own practice when the class action lawsuit gained traction and ultimately settled. I changed my practice not because I thought there was anything wrong with the way the industry was operating, but because it was very important to me to start emphasizing and educating buyers about picking a strong agent and committing to that agent. I strongly believe many, if not most buyers, are going to be unpleasantly surprised when confronted with a formal legal relationship with buyer agents in the new paradigm. In my experience, buyers tend to think they're going to get the best deal by keeping their options open. This is a false narrative, of course, but one I believe is deeply ingrained in the culture of buyers. And I don't think that's just in my area because I talk to agents across the country on a regular basis and here in the same city. But please note as you listen to this video that my licensure, expertise, and focus are in California, but my observations can be used to ask questions to buyer agents in the state. So let's talk about home buyers and their agent. At the top of this video, I mentioned two big changes coming in just less than 40 days. But only change number 2 appears on its face to apply to buyers. It's important to understand, however, that without express offers of compensation to buyer agents in the MLS by sellers, that is change number 1, it is possible and even probable that buyers will be faced with paying the agents themselves. And this is going to be a big part of change number 2, the buyer representation agreements. This is a huge departure from historical practice and make the new representation agreements signed with buyer agents all the more important to understand. As an initial matter, buyers even need an agent. I bring this up because it is most certainly a question buyers will ask themselves as they grapple with the strong possibility of yet another expense in buying a home. As I mentioned in part 1 of this Countdown to Chaos theory, buyers could certainly skip representation and the hassle of who pays for those services, really only if, quote, from my part 1, it's a buy and sell frequently and know how to price an offer, especially in the new paradigm, size up the listing agent, negotiate a multiple offer scenario, schedule their own inspections, usually on a short timeline, wrangle their lender into funding on time, negotiate repairs based on inspections, and analyze and sign a whole stack of legally binding paperwork. Clearly, I tend to believe that most buyers would make a grave mistake by trying to represent themselves in the transaction. I've also outlined a long list of services that buyer agents expertly provide in Part 2 of the Countdown to Chaos theory. Links to both Part 1 and Part 2 will be in the show notes. What about using the listing agent or another agent on the listing agent's team to make an offer? Practice known as dual agency. I've written extensively about dual agency before, and I will link to that article in the show notes as well. There's simply no universe where two competing parties, as in the buyer and the seller, can both maximize their outcome via one representative, no matter how noble that representative. Will buyers really end up paying for their agent along with the other piles of money required to close modern home buying transactions? It remains to be seen how sellers will react to the new shift. But for now, only time will tell how these changes shake out in practical application. But no matter what sellers intend at the outset, that is, at the time when they sign their listing agreement, which historically has been that time when they define how much money should go to the buyer's agent, and buyers will always be able to add a term in their offer asking for the seller credit to cover the buyer agent fees. Buyers, however, need to understand that not every competing buyer will include the same request in their offer, and a property might be lost because their offer is not financially on par with other offers. Assuming you agree with me that you shouldn't represent yourself, you will next need to consider the terms in a buyer's rep agreement and how they apply to your specific situation. So let's talk about what those buyer agreements look like at this stage of the game. The primary lawsuit instigating all these changes was settled only 4 short months ago and then preliminarily approved by the judge only in late April. Final approval won't even come until November, but practice changes are mandated to start August 17th, notwithstanding. There are still a lot of people scratching their heads trying to make sense of the language of the settlement. Add to that the DOJ making noise about how they might try to influence the process, and you can see why I'm predicting chaos for the foreseeable future. You can also then understand why the new agreements are very much in flux. Realtor associations across the country have been scrambling to come up with new MLS rules and recommend buyer representation agreements to their members. Here in California, the California Association of Realtors, or CAR, published their recommended agreement and were informed on June 25, 2024, and found their efforts immediately criticized by the Consumer Federation of America. But this criticism then prompted an implementation postponement until July 10th, later this week at the time of this publication. Suffice it to say, buyer representation agreements are very fluid at this time, even as the August 17th deadline looms large. Most agents in California use the CAR documents. Here's hoping the revised version is simplified and more clear than the originally released version with its 4,000 words and 39 internal cross-references. According to the National Association of Realtors, buyer agreements going forward across the nation are going to require 4 components. First, a specific and conspicuous disclosure of the amount or rate of compensation the real estate agent will receive, or how this amount will be determined. Second, compensation that is objective. It has to be $0, X flat fee, X%, X hourly rate, and not open-ended. For example, it cannot say buyer broker compensation will be whatever the seller is willing to pay. That's too bad. Third, a term that prohibits the agents from receiving compensation for brokerage services from any source that exceeds the amount or rate agreed to in the agreement with the buyer. Fourth, a conspicuous statement that broker fees and commissions are fully negotiable and not set by law. My own brokerage, EXT Realty, is offering an alternative to the CAR agreement EXT's agreement has been generally heralded as much simpler, clearer, and pro-consumer, more so than the CAR agreement. That is a quote from the Consumer Federation of America. And if you know anything about me at this point, you know that I dig pro-consumer. So EXT for the win. The EXT agreement is indeed simple. It is less than 2 pages and outlines the property type and geographic area defining the relationship. You are free to limit the geographic scope as narrowly as you desire. You could list a specific street, for instance. Agents will, of course, want to define the area as broadly as possible, so you'll have to keep an eye on that term. The time period defined in the agreement can also be narrowly defined. Interestingly, EXT agreement only obligates you to pay a fee if you use the agent to make an offer. Make sure terms in whatever you sign, unless you are 100% positive that you're ready to convey to the agent that you're signing with in that moment. I will hazard a guess that most agreements will not end up being as simple or pro-consumer as the EXT agreement, but all buyer representation agreements, no matter who they are offered by, are 100% negotiable. Using EXT agents to get access to that agreement, or tell your non-EXT agent that you want a representation agreement that is just like the EXT agreement. So, the home buying process. I tend to think of the home buying process as a 2-part process. First, finding the one, and second, negotiating an offer and closing on that offer via the sometimes complicated escrow process. Buyers have different needs in each stage, and different agent skill sets are highlighted each stage. In part 1, in my mind, that's the part of the process where you might consider going it alone without a formal agent relationship, at least at the outset. For example, you might want to start your home search on your own with open house visits. This isn't particularly practical or convenient, but it can work for your initial research. The alternative is to use an agreement like the EXT agreement, making it clear to the agent that you're only committing to that agent for the houses you will tour with the agent, or limiting it to maybe an hourly fee for showing the properties. The alternative is to set your own showings, although the current system does not make it easy to find the listing agent's contact information. It's also a huge wild card whether listing agents will be willing to make showing appointments with unrepresented buyers. That's certainly going to entail a lot more work on their part than they're used to doing, and it's just one of those things that we're going to have to see how it works out. They might agree to carry the property in hopes of enlisting you in a dual agency relationship, but you can bet money they won't try very hard to make a showing appointment absent this possibility, even though they owe their seller every obligation to show the property. Why? The opportunity of letting the listing agent think the dual agency is a possibility might be something for you to take advantage of in your early research, knowing that you are under no obligation to sign an agreement with anybody not accepting a commission to show you a home. I need a listing agent. Let me restate that again because that's super important. Listing agents should be willing to show the property without a buyer representation agreement. Nobody who doesn't expect a fee from you needs to have a signed agreement with you. Don't let a listing agent tell you you must sign anything to see the property. If they insist you sign an agreement, they are pushing a dual agency relationship that is not necessarily in your best interest and might prevent you from bringing in your own agent later in the process. Part 2 of the home buying process includes negotiating an offer and closing the transaction via the escrow process. It is my opinion that this is the real heavy lifting in the home buying process, and one is fraught with risk if you don't understand the whole picture and how all the moving parts impact each other. This is the point when you should feel very comfortable with the agent you intend to use and you should sign an agreement for services that will provide you with your most successful outcome. Now let me offer you some final thoughts and practical application with these new agreements. If you agree with me that you need a great independent agent to shepherd you through one or both parts of the home buying process, you will need to sign a representation agreement at that point. The topics you need to sort out for yourself ahead of signing any such agreement include: how much are you willing to pay for professional representation? Don't assume good agents will work for an hourly rate, although this may involve for showing agents. Do you understand and have a strong opinion about independent representation? Do you fully understand the distinction in finding and touring houses versus the offer negotiation and escrow process of the parts 1 and 2 of the home buying process that I mentioned earlier? Do you understand that the most talented agents are not going to be willing to take lower compensation just because the rule has changed? If somebody is willing to work for you cheap, make sure you're very comfortable that they're the most qualified agent for your situation. Do you understand you can ask the seller for a credit as part of your offer to pay for your agent? Do you understand that asking for such a credit might make your offer less attractive than a competing offer? Do you have liquid resources available to pay your agent if the seller won't provide a credit? Are you willing to walk away from a property if the seller won't agree to a credit to pay your agent? Having thought about all of those topics ahead of time should make it easier to understand and navigate the representation agreement process. Use the EXP agreement as your guide. You'll find a link to that agreement in the show notes. If anything in the agreement you're asked to sign is different than the EXP agreement, ask your agent to explain the significance of the differing language and document your understanding in a follow-up email. You will want this paper trail if there is a disagreement later about the agreement you signed. Don't be afraid to sign an agreement until you fully understand the terms and they say what you want them to say. Cross things out, write in your own terms. But be aware that this is a legally binding agreement, and unless you're a lawyer, you may not fully comprehend the implications of what you're writing in or crossing out. But at the end of the day, the universal truth is that the broker fee is not set by law and fully negotiable, as plainly stated in the EXP agreement. You are fully within your rights to end up with an agreement that serves your own highest interest. Another pro-consumer aspect of the EXP agreement is the easy out cancellation policy. You can cancel at any time unless you're under contract for a property that the broker helped you negotiate. I fully expect residential real estate to be the wild, wild west for 6 months to a year following implementation of these changes on IT, while the changes get ironed out in practical application. The changes are seismic for buyers, but they are big for sellers too, in ways that even take some time for sellers to appreciate. So mark your calendars. You have just over a month to lock down a deal and expect the old rules to apply. Absent that, welcome to the Wild West. Next week, I'll look at the reasons why sellers will want to continue to pay to have a good agent in the transaction representing the buyer. And the special disclaimer for this particular article: you are not my client unless we have a written agreement. This video and the accompanying article are offered for informational and/or entertainment purposes only. Neither I, nor Silicon Beach Properties, nor EXP Realty is responsible for the consequences of how you implement the content, and nothing herein is intended to address your specific situation. Additionally, and this is super important because of how fast things are moving, the information contained herein may be outdated legally and/or factually by the time you consume the content. So consult a professional licensed in your jurisdiction. Until next week, be well, and please tell a few friends about the beach city's Trendline. Trendlines are fundamental to choosing a home buying or home selling strategy. Anybody with plans to buy or sell this year will want to join us for this important conversation, especially the countdown chaos.